Good morning. It's the 5th of January. I've just finished planning Act 4.1, which was the act that I got a bit stuck on yesterday. It's the first act of part two of the novel. So, first act of the first chapter of part two of the novel. And I was excited about part two because it was a complete break from the first part of the novel, and different scenery, lots of different things happening. And I sat down with an idea of what was happening, and then I think I realized I didn't have quite as much content in mind as I originally thought I did. I had a vague, I guess, single sentence per act sort of trajectory of where I thought it was all going. But then when I actually started to write, I got a little bit uncertain about what to put down next. So I only planned half of Act 4.1 yesterday. I was really happy with what I planned. It answered questions based on what I came up with at the end of the first part of the novel, that I hadn't anticipated when I did the original sort of a general plan for the book, which was great. And then I left it because I thought I don't want to rush anything. I need to be patient with having the right ideas come, but I was also conscious that I didn't want to just let it. I didn't want to spend a week planning the act, because I mean the other days I got through an act a day at the very least, and I think there's something in the consistent flow of that was working really well. Like, I don't think stopping and meandering too long on one act is going to make it a really good act. I think there would be something lost in the momentum if I lost confidence in knowing how to go forward with it. So with that in mind, though, I mean, I sat down this morning and I wasn't terribly aware of what I was going to do. I didn't have any great ideas yesterday afterwards. I just went about the day and worked and did stuff, and then when I sat down this morning, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but what I did, I looked at the page, and I ended up doing two things that really helped. One was I opened up the Oblique Strategies app. I think I've mentioned that here in the past. So it's an app based on these creative thinking prompts that Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt created in, I think, 1975, and they were a deck of cards that were originally produced that had prompts on them to help you to think a bit outside the box, or to fix particular challenges thinking. If you're making a piece of music, it helped you to see it in a different way in case you were getting a bit stuck, for example. So I opened it this morning, and I've got the app version, and I swiped through to the first prompt that randomly came up, and it said if you were thinking in sections, try instead thinking in transitions. And that really helped, because I was thinking in 5 discrete scenes within the act, as I have been for every act, and I think I was getting too stuck on thinking, well, what should happen next? What's the next part? What's the next compartmentalized piece of action that needs to take place here? And what thinking about transitions instead allowed me to do was to see it as an arc, and to see the flow of the act, and how one thing was going to lead into the next in a very smooth way, that helped me to get my head more into that space. And I looked through other acts that I've planned for part one of the novel, and I was surprised. I think I was surprised at maybe just not how little content needed to be in each scene, but maybe that is what I'm saying. I was looking at Act 4 and trying to pack in a lot of things, almost like it felt like a chapter's worth of things. And when I tell you what I'm about to say in a moment, it's going to seem like it contradicts this, but the idea was that I was looking at my act, and when I compared it to other acts that I'd written and looked at the transitional flow across the act, the others didn't have as much content, and that was a good thing, because the tempo, the pace of the act went very smoothly and wasn't rushed. And what I think the act 4.1 that I was doing was trying to rush and put a lot of things in because it felt like it needed to do that at the start of part 2 of the novel. It needed a lot of stuff happening, and partially that's true, that it does need lots of stuff happening, but not so many things that it rushes the tempo of the act. So that prompt was very handy. And then I swiped through to one more prompt, and that prompt said, zero in on the meaning and then exploit it. I think that's what it said. I think I've written it down here somewhere. Yeah, sorry, zero in on the message and then exploit it. And I thought that's really cool, because that brought me back to thinking, well, what is the purpose of this chapter? What's the function of it? Why is it here? Is it just setting things up to later result in a punchline later? Why are we spending 3,000 words in this act? And I knew the first part of the answer, because the first 1,500 words wrote themselves eventually based on what needed to happen after part 1 of the novel. But the remaining part of the act, the last sort of 2.5 scenes, I guess, just weren't there. But when I was thinking about the meaning, it suddenly made it very clear, because there's something very important that needs to happen in chapter 4, across acts 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4. And I think I was trying to spend too much time waiting for that thing to happen. I wanted to build to it, but I didn't know how to build to it. And the answer that I came to was that I actually need to get to that point within the first act to let everyone know where we're going to, instead of just obliquely, hinting at something that then would eventually happen. I actually needed to come out and say it and let people be excited about something that they've just realised that will actually grow and turn into something different down the track of this particular chapter. So that was great. That really helped me to exploit the message there in that way. And the last thing that helped, after I had read through those oblique strategies and considered them, was I had a look at what else I had planned for chapter 4, so for acts 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4. And what I realised was that I had a lot of good action in those acts, but there's probably only enough content to cover 2 acts instead of 4. So where I said earlier that I didn't want to rush things, and it seems like I'm contradicting that a bit now, but they're genuinely, well, at first, I should say, when I looked at the content that I had across the 4 acts, it's true that it is only enough for 2 acts, but that just meant that I needed to, rather than squeeze all of that into, and this is what I tried to do, and I partially did, is I took the content from those 4 acts that I'd planned out, and I ended up putting a lot of it into just act 1, but just enough so the tempo remained really neat. It felt right, like it felt like a good level of exposition and action and narrative foreshadowing towards what's to come. It had all that there, but what it also did was it allowed me to think of new content and new pathways that the act could go that I hadn't originally envisaged. So what I've done is, I guess, taken different structural parts of the 4 acts that I had originally planned out. I've moved a lot of them into act 4.1, some will come in 4.2, some will remain in 4.4, and 4.2 and 4.3 will actually have a lot of new content to allow new connections to happen that I hadn't originally had in mind. So I guess that idea of restructuring things in that capacity, and being a bit brutal too, like it felt really good to just sort of grab something from one section and put it in another, and I think it helped me feel that later when, because I know I'm probably very naive about just how much I'm going to be doing this the whole way through now, but I certainly am you know, I understand that I'm going to get to a point where I'll have written some writing, some prose that I'm really happy with. I think, oh, that all fits in so nicely, it's all so neat. And then I'll realise that none of that should be there and something else should be there, and maybe that gets completely discarded. Like, I know that level of editing is coming, so it's good to get some practice in with ripping good ideas out of one section and using them somewhere else, or maybe not using them at all. But you know, that type of brutal editing, which I just had a little taste of this morning in a very positive way, is something that I is foreshadowing what I'll be doing in the future with the book. So that's it. Good. It was a good morning. I'm looking forward to Act 4.2 tomorrow. I've already got a bit of a run on for what I know is going to happen there, but there's also lots of other unknowns that I'll think about when I get to it. So thank you for watching. Have a good day, and I'll be back tomorrow morning, but I won't be in this location. Travelling this evening to Sydney, so I'll be in a different setting. Alrighty, I'll see you then. Bye.